After being in Half-Life Alyx for just 5 minutes, I thought to myself, gee man, this game is amazing. It was a thought that never went away throughout my entire playthrough. I was consistently amazed as I looked up at the skyboxes with awe. I was so immersed within the world that I actually caught myself subconsciously holding my breath as I held a head crab up to my face.
Oh, so that's what a woman looks like with her pants off. I'll draw that out on my notes.
It was so easy to become engrossed in this virtual reality due to the level of interactivity being off the charts. A lot of you guys probably already know this, but there is a fully functioning piano in the game.
I'm like Raymond Charlie, except I can see.
This sort of engagement really allows players to creatively express themselves in a way that was never possible before. There are freaking dry erase markers that you can use to draw on whiteboards and windows. It's incredible. I spent almost as much time doing something stupid like filling out this entire window pane for 45 minutes to make a green screen as I did actually playing the game. Half-Life Alyx is currently the pinnacle of VR. Everything here is top-notch. Guns have never felt so damn good in virtual reality. The pistol feels weighty and powerful. The SMG is a force to be reckoned with, and the shotgun is beefier than Alyx's curtains. Throwing has never felt better in VR. In some of the older games like Superhot, the throwing can be a little unintuitive to say the least, and maybe that's because I do all my gaming on the Oculus Quest. But Valve did their best to make sure Alyx felt consistent no matter what headset you're using. So as a result, each and every toss felt incredibly consistent.
Yes.
Nice throw.
In most VR games, if you want to pick up an item off the ground, you just point at it and squeeze your hand, and the item magically zorps up into your palm. It doesn't make much sense, but it's convenient. Bending down to pick up every single item would be tedious and it would make Tubbos too tired. But Alyx managed to turn picking up items off the ground into a full-on mechanic with the gravity gloves. You just point her beam flickers at an object, grip, yank towards you, then clutch it out of the air. It's very simplistic, however there is a slight skill gap to this. It takes a couple of tries to really get it right at first, but it quickly becomes second nature.
Yeah, I wonder...
I really don't know how to express with words just how immensely satisfying these gloves are, but I'll put it this way. The gravity gloves are the coolest thing since Kratos' axe. I'm on my second playthrough right now and I'm still not tired of doing this. I spent so much time using the gravity gloves that after long play sessions, I instinctively wanted to try using the gloves on real-life objects. Now, I could sit here and talk about the finer details of Half-Life Alyx all day long, but there's a whole entire video game to discuss here, so let's get to it. Half-Life Alyx is made up of 3 pillars of gameplay: exploration, combat, and puzzle solving. We'll start with exploration, which is very important and incredibly rewarding. It's worth opening up every single locker door and peeking around each corner, because ammo, health, and upgrade materials are hidden all over the place, but you gotta put in the effort to look for them. I've never been able to truly inspect a room at such a granular level in video games before. So turning over a bucket or picking up a cardboard box to find an upgrade material hidden inside of it is just as satisfying as finding your keys in real life.
I knew it. It's always the last place you look.
Most of the weapon upgrades are worth getting, apart from this one. I mean, who the hell needs a laser sight on their shotgun? What a waste of materials. Everything else is handy though, especially on the shotgun. I mean, look at this. Half-Life 3 is going to be out in the time it takes you to manually reload this puppy. But with the autoloader upgrade, well, that'll make a grown man salivate. And the grenade launcher upgrade is badass. Almost essential for taking down big boys. Now, there are only 3 weapons to choose from in the game, which doesn't sound like much, but trust me, it's just enough. And as the game progresses, the weapons look and feel much different as you upgrade them. So they never felt stale. I played this game on hard, and I'd recommend you to as well. It made the combat even more exciting. Getting shot at by the Combine, especially when I wasn't expecting it, was very flustering. It's intense, man. I felt genuinely suppressed as bullets whizzed past my head. On hard mode, you'll need to use your cover intelligently, as the Combine will do their very best to take you down. Their AI is pretty good. They seem to communicate amongst each other and will typically split up. One will try to flank you while the other tries to keep you distracted. And the different enemy types keep you on your toes too. There's this big guy with a minigun, and his sole purpose is to keep you suppressed by dumping consistent streams of gunfire at your general direction. He stops firing every so often, so if you want to peek or move to a different piece of cover, you need to wait till he stops shooting. And it's not very wise to stay behind one piece of cover, since it's this other big guy's sole focus to bum rush you with his shotgun. This guy is no joke. You want to get him off the battlefield, but don't focus on him too hard, because if you leave this other guy alive for long enough, he will grab a manhack from his backpack, which you then need to attack. And these things mess you up real good. They serve to apply pressure to you, while also wasting your ammo and taking your focus off the soldiers, giving them a chance to move in on you. And then you got your standard Combine soldier. Some of them have a propane tank on their back, which you can shoot, but it's such a small target. But when you land that perfect, precise shot, it makes you feel like a rock star. When all of the elements of each individual enemy combine with one another on the battlefield, it makes for a damn good time. You're constantly having to make decisions on the fly about which weapon to use and which enemy you should take out first. It all feels very dynamic, and the combat here is top-notch. I felt like a true man for the first time in my life as I smashed a window to pieces and popped out of cover to shoot through it. And once you start to get sick of the Combine, they throw freaking antlions at you to shake things up. To take them out, you gotta give them the old Lieutenant Dan treatment by blowing 2 of their legs off, which will then expose a bulbous weak spot on their back. If you're particularly skilled, you can kill these guys while they still have their legs. It just takes good timing and precise aim, which seems to be a constant for most of the enemies in this game. Even some of the headcrab zombies have a small little glowy part on them that makes them explode when you shoot it. But it can be tough to land that shot since it's so small and they're moving around so much. The classic poisonous headcrabs return. These things are huge. I don't like them. Even now on my second playthrough, I still find it very unsettling when these guys try to jump on my face. We've also got a new spiky head crab, which has an invulnerable shell. The only way to take them down is with a carefully placed shot to their underbelly.
Ah! Help! Oh.
In between combat sections, there are puzzles to solve. The puzzles range from fine to pretty good, with all of them being very intuitive. You've got your pipe dream type puzzle here. Just follow the orange line and turn it into a blue line by guiding a stream of electricity through the proper channels inside the walls to activate the power to whatever device you need to operate. There's nothing particularly challenging about these, but they are satisfying to complete. This next one here is more of a minigame than a puzzle. You just drag one blue disc into the other blue disc, and it's kind of fun. For this one here, you gotta make sure that all the lines touch each of the orbs by dragging a ball to the correct spot. This type of puzzle really forces you to think about the three-dimensional space in a way that I've never had to in video games before. It's pretty interesting. The last puzzle is also pretty basic. You just match the colored symbols to one another. It's simple memorization. All 4 of these puzzles show up fairly often throughout the game. They look simplistic as all hell, and in the beginning, they are. But the puzzles get more and more complex as the game progresses. Some of them took me a few tries to complete. Every weapon upgrade station requires you to solve a puzzle to access it, and there are some puzzle boxes that are a little bit off the beaten path, but when you complete them, you're rewarded with upgrade materials, grenades, health, and ammo, so it's worth poking around to find these and complete them. It's a perfect gameplay loop. You explore to find goodies and puzzles, which will then help you in combat. Perfect. The campaign itself took me about 16 hours on my first playthrough, but I was having big issues with my brand new graphics card, which is partially why this video is so late, and is why some of the footage might look a little bit choppy at times. So I took the liberty of playing through the game again in order to snag some better looking footage for you guys. But without going into spoilers, the campaign has so much diversity, not only in its environmental design, which will take you from a subway to a hotel, to a zoo, but also in its scenarios. There's a segment where it's pitch black and explosives are littered all over the damn place, in the walls, all over the ground, and of course in the ceiling, right next to the barnacles that you need to shoot because they're blocking your path. One misplaced shot here will bring the entire place down on your head. It's a little bit tense. There's another segment where you stumble upon a room full of trip mines that you have to defuse with a very steady, surgical hand. Or there's another segment where you gotta be super quiet. You don't want to accidentally knock over items, so you have to think about your hand motions in a very different way than you're used to. And I'll just leave it at that for spoiler reasons. But this section of the game had me absolutely terrified. My headset was soaked with sweat after this part. What a coward. The story itself was pretty good. It really helped to flesh out the Half-Life universe, and I also found Russell to be a very likable character. It was really pleasant having his voice in my ear throughout the entire game.
Alyx, I don't think there's any tampons in that Sandy hut.
Just looking, Russ.
He's played by Rhys Darby, and ever since I was a teenager, I love that actor. But I'm getting off topic. To top things off, the game also gives you a little bit of creative freedom. Like maybe I don't want to dismantle these trip mines in the traditional way. When the game teaches you how to use grenades, it gives you an abundance of them to play around with. But you can't carry all of them. At most, you can hold up to 5 grenades, unless you put them all into a bucket. Now you can carry a dozen of them without clogging up your inventory. How cool is that? Now, Half-Life Alyx doesn't provide as much creative freedom as Boneworks, but as a result, Half-Life Alyx is a much more focused experience. Boneworks is still a tremendous game, but these are apples and oranges here. A lot of people like to compare them, and I get why, but both games stand on their own. Now, it's no secret that I love Half-Life Alyx. I mean, I've spent this entire video gushing over it, but it's not perfect. I think it's important to acknowledge a couple of things here. Like, first and foremost, there's no melee mechanic. You can throw items at enemies to stun them, but you can't hit them. While melee combat in VR can be a ton of fun, it's far from perfect. So I understand why it isn't present in Alyx. And when people start swinging their dukes around while essentially blindfolded, well, that's when $100 controllers break.
Oh, I knew it!
The lack of a jump button is also a bit disheartening and immersion breaking, so instead you're forced to just teleport around. Now, I completely understand their reasoning for doing this. It's the same reason you glide down ever so gently, as opposed to free falling when you step off of a ledge. It's the same reason there's no vehicle section or sprint button. It's because jumping, falling, sprinting, and especially driving in VR will make a lot of people sick. Since this is going to be a lot of folks' very first VR experience, the lack of basic mechanics is clearly an intentional choice that was made to not push newcomers away, because Valve doesn't want people ripping off their headset looking for the nearest spew bucket. It might sound like they made a lot of compromises in order to make this a VR game, and while that is partially true, they also made this game from the ground up with those compromises in mind. And of course, the fact that the first Half-Life game in over a decade is a VR exclusive will continue to rustle some jimmies, but if you really want to, there's a mod that allows you to play through the game on mouse and keyboard, but I would strongly recommend that you just wait until you can get your hands on a VR headset. Every issue I have with this game doesn't hurt it in any way. Yes, there's no doubt that it would probably be better with a melee mechanic in it, but as is, the game doesn't need it. What we have here is still an amazing experience that even on a second playthrough managed to keep me in love with it, and I tend to hate replaying games. So the fact that I plan on returning to it for a third playthrough should say a lot. I can't sit here and tell you that Half-Life Alyx is going to be worth the $800 to $1,200 it's going to cost for some people to play it, but I would say that Alyx definitely lived up to the hype. The game simply blew me away from start to finish. And at the end of the day, it does feel like Alyx is the teaser for Half-Life 3, which honestly might be closer than we think.
And then finally, I'm definitely curious, what does the next 10 years of this place look like, of Valve?
I don't know. I definitely want to make more Half-Life.
Alyx is Valve dipping their toes into the water, seeing if they can make the game and if people are going to like it. Alyx was an entry point to get headsets into people's homes. Now VR has more users than ever, which will incentivize other developers to make more games for VR, which will ultimately push the industry forward. And that's pretty much the goal of every Half-Life game, right? To set a new standard for gaming. Which is why I'm hopeful that Half-Life 3 is in the cards, because there's still so much room for Valve to innovate within this medium. At the end of the day, Half-Life Alyx was a triumph. It's hard to overstate my satisfaction. I'm really glad to see that the Half-Life series is still alive. Well, that's it for this video, everyone. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe. I give these videos all I got. So it'd fill my heart with glee if I could hit 100,000 subscribers sometime soon. And if I do, my dad promised me that he would make eye contact with me for the first time in 10 years. So please, hit that button. I've also got to give a big shout out to all my patrons. Maybe consider joining these fine fellas for some sweet behind the scenes action. Last but not least, if you are still on the fence about VR, go check out the video I did on it. I spent a month and a half on this video and I think it turned out pretty good. And I also want to thank you guys for the insane growth as of late. It's been seriously humbling. But thanks to the current quarantine, I've had to put a lot of video ideas on hold, which does suck for sure, but it's small potatoes in the grand scheme of the world. And at the end of the day, I fully realize that I am very lucky to live in a city with a relatively low amount of cases, and none of my immediate friends or family have been affected thus far. And I have a lot of you guys to keep me company in the Discord server. But I really hope that you guys are staying safe and healthy out there. I don't want to dwell on this because I don't think you guys come to this channel to hear about the big Rona. So I'll just leave it at that, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
And then he'll tip me like this. Oh, Spencer, take me in your arms. It's so sad that you have to go back to the army tomorrow.